everyone! Welcome to Switchblade Sisters Social Club, the true crime podcast where two friends exploit their worst fears for your entertainment.
You're welcome.
I'm Dee, a writer and podcaster.
And I'm Isla from Criminally Good Books, a true crime and crime fiction bookshop in York.
Follow us on all the socials.
Except for X, obviously.
Or have a look at our website, switchbladesisterssocialclub.com.
Check them out for all our latest episodes, events, deals, and other weird stuff.
Listeners' discretion advised. Hello, I'm Dee, and welcome to another Dee-Brief, where I try to keep you hooked on us while we have a season break by not having a season break at all. So, today takes us back to Birmingham. Yes, I know, I've been going to Birmingham a lot. I've moved here, had you heard, only about 100 million times, but I'm going to take you to the summer of 1961. A 15-year-old girl goes to a funfair with her friends and never comes home. Nearly 50 years later, police finally charge a suspect, and everyone thinks justice is finally about to happen, but then the trial never takes place. This is the murder of Jacqueline Thomas. So like I said, we're going back to August 1961, 18th of August. It's a Friday evening, and 15-year-old Jacqueline Thomas heads to a traveling fun fair in Ward End, Birmingham. By all accounts, she's an ordinary teenager, if there is such a thing. She works in a biscuit factory. She's one of 8 sisters, and she's looking forward to this evening out. The fair is packed, there's music, there's rides, there's teenagers everywhere. It seems like wholesome fun. Witnesses later say that they saw Jacqueline talking to a young man at around 10:30 that night, and it would be the last confirmed sighting of her alive. She never returned home. As the hours passed, her family became increasingly worried. Police launched a search, and then a week later, on the 25th of August, the search came to a devastating end. Jacqueline's body was discovered on an allotment in Bordsley Green, an area only a few miles from where she'd last been seen. An inquest would later conclude that she had been murdered by, in quotes, person or persons unknown. Police immediately appealed for witnesses. Detectives returned to the fun fair, surprised it was still there. They questioned people who had been there that night, and within days they announced that one man was helping them with their inquiries. They even traveled to London to interview another potential suspect. There were appeals to the public, appeals to everyone, and every lead was followed. But none of it produced enough evidence to charge anyone, and slowly the investigation went cold. Like so many murder cases, time became the enemy. And one thing that's easy to forget is just how different murder investigations were in 1961. There was no CCTV, there was no mobile phones, there was no DNA profiling, very little forensic science compared to today. So if nobody saw what happened, and if the killer left very little behind, police often had almost nothing to work with. Until nearly half a century later, we fast forward to 2007, cold case detectives from West Midland Police reopened Jacqueline's murder. They reviewed the original evidence and they re-examined witness statements, and they submit their findings to the Crown Prosecution Service. Then something remarkable happens. A man is charged. His name is Anthony Hall, and he is now 70 years old. Witnesses recalled Thomas speaking with the young man at the fair, and he was subsequently identified as 24-year-old Anthony Hall, a married father of 1. He admitted being at the fairground with Jacqueline Thomas on the evening of her death, and that they had embraced and kissed, but he denied killing her. He asked his mother to provide a false alibi because he didn't want his wife to know that he had been, in quotation marks, larking about with girls. Although he was considered as a suspect, Hall was not charged with the murder at the time. By this point, he was already serving a life sentence for murdering another teenage girl. In March 1969, Hall had been convicted of the murder of 16-year-old Sylvia Whitehouse, whom he stabbed to death with a screwdriver after offering her a lift in his car. Her body had been discovered by a lorry driver in December 1968 on waste ground at Bicknhill Lane, Marston Green, near Birmingham Airport. The location was a popular destination for courting couples, and the case became known as the Lover's Lane murder. This is very close to where I am now because I don't know if you heard, but I recently moved to Birmingham. Following his trial, Hall was jailed for life. Police believe they finally have enough evidence to prosecute him for Jacqueline Thomas's murder too. For Jacqueline's family, it must have felt like justice was finally within reach, 46 years after her death. But then everything fell apart. The case never reached a jury. A judge ruled that the passage of time made a fair trial impossible. Public reporting suggested that there were concerns about missing evidence. Witnesses had died, memories had faded, records had disappeared, and after nearly half a century, the criminal justice system simply couldn't guarantee this fair trial. So proceedings were never followed up on. Not because Hall was found innocent, and not because the evidence was disproved, but because the court decided the trial could no longer be fair. So people often ask whether murder cases can time out. Technically, they can't. In England and Wales, there's no statute of limitation for murder. If the police find enough evidence 50, 60, 70 years later, they can still charge someone. The problem isn't the calendar. The problem is whether the evidence had survived well enough for a fair trial. And where this was not DNA evidence or anything like that, it was reliant on people's memories. And so much time had passed, it was ruled as not viable. So was Anthony Hall guilty? Officially, we don't know. He was charged, but he was never tried, which means there was never a verdict. The exact evidence that persuaded prosecutors to charge him has never been fully disclosed publicly, and some reports suggest advances in forensic science might eventually play a role. The truth is, we simply don't know, and because the trial never happened, the evidence was never tested in court. Anthony Hall died in prison in 2011, but not for Jacqueline's murder. He died serving a life sentence for a different killing. Meanwhile, Jacqueline's case remains officially unsolved, and in fact, as recently as 2023, West Midlands Police still included her name on an official list of unsolved murders, more than 60 years after she disappeared. Jacqueline Thomas was just 15 years old, a teenager enjoying an evening at the fair. She never got to grow up, and she never got to build a life that she should have been able to. Her case also reminds us of something else. Cold cases don't always end the way we like. Sometimes detectives do identify a suspect. Sometimes they even bring charges. But justice requires more than suspicion. It requires a trial. And sometimes time itself becomes the final obstacle. Thank you for listening to this debrief. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget to follow, subscribe, leave us a review, like, all of the above. It really does make so much difference to the algorithm, whatever it decides to do on the day, and us independent podcasters. If you do know anything about the murder of Jacqueline Thomas, however insignificant it may seem, West Midlands Police continue to regard this case as unsolved. Do get in touch with them. Until next time, stay curious. Bye, bye. Love you. Bye, sexy listeners.
Like this episode? Want more? Come visit me, Isla, at Criminally Good Books in the heart of York. We're an independent bookshop dedicated entirely to crime. From cosy mysteries to gritty thrillers, historical whodunits to juicy true crime. We've got signed editions, special gifts and plenty of recommendations for your next obsession. We also host a bunch of awesome author events. Can't make it in person? Visit us online at criminallygoodbooks.co.uk.